Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Jack Byrne. I'm a business development manager for Groundlabs. Today we're going to go through some practical advice that we can give that we're helping our customers with regards to the regulation. We're a data security company. We specialize in sensitive data discovery. So we'll touch on a few of the main articles and how we can help. So I'm probably going to be touching on a few things that have been discussed over and over today. So obviously coming into effect on the 25th of May, the regulation is going to create a seismic shift in the way organizations manage personal information. Here you have some of the individual's rights under the new regulation. And I suppose one note to point out right off the bat is that this isn't just going to affect EU companies. It's going to affect any company that's processing the information of EU citizens. So it's regarding personal information, as we all know, or any data that can relate or tie back to an individual. So this can be anything from passport numbers, driver's license numbers, healthcare information, and so on. So what we've done is we've developed a piece of software that is pre-configured with hundreds of data types ready to scan for out of the box. This can include anything from, financial data, personal information. So you can see things pre-configured in the tool like bank account numbers, SWIFT codes, IBAN details, driver's license numbers, passport numbers, and so on. And we have data types pre-configured from all 28 EU states. So one of the main articles that we're hearing a lot about speaking to some of our customers is Article 15, Subject Access Requests. So the individual will have the right to request from an organization all the information or data that organization is holding on them. So obviously, for many organizations, and mainly larger organizations, it's a very difficult task to manage, to go and find every piece of information that you're holding on one specific individual. And we suspect that these subject access requests are going to increase when the regulation comes into effect. So what we've done anyway to try and address this is we've built in a custom search capability into the software. So the example or the story that we tell on this slide is regarding Mrs. Jane Wilkinson at the top of the slide on the right there. We've made her up. She's just a fictional character for the purpose of the presentation. So the example goes that Jane Wilkinson has been using an airline for quite some time now, and she started to receive emails, special offers for flights, so she requests that they stop. But lo and behold, a few weeks later, she continues to receive more of these advertisements and spam emails, so she decides to put in a subject access request. So the DPO, or whoever's managing this at the airline, is going to then have to try and identify every piece of information they're holding relating to Jane and show that to her in a machine-readable format within the 30-day time limit. So what you can do using the software is you can use a few unique identifiers that you have relating to the data subject. So unique identifiers could be anything from, in this example, her name. If this is regarding the airline, it could be their passport number, an Air Miles account number, whatever piece of information they have relating to the data subject, they can input into these fields here so that when you schedule your next scan, the software is going to identify every piece of information relating to these unique identifiers so that we can bring this back to the management interface and the person managing this request can show Jane all of the data that they're holding on her. So obviously, without the correct tools in place, this can be quite a difficult task to manage. And even if you have certain processes in place, how can you be sure that you have identified every piece of information? So the next step is right to erasure. So off the back of these subject access requests, if the business doesn't have a business justified reason to be holding all of this information, or if they're holding it unlawfully, the data subject will more than likely request that this information be deleted. What we've done as well when we've developed this tool is we've tried to address every single aspect of the organization. So, sensitive data is sensitive data regardless of where it resides. So we're trying to cover everything: your email servers, databases, cloud storage, workstations. We're trying to help everybody out, so we're covering all your main operating systems as well. So the software works with Mac, Linux, HP, and so on. This is what you'd expect to see when logging into the management interface. So on the top right of the screen there, we're giving you a summary of all the data that we found. So you can see there's over 15 million matches in just 11 targets. When we're referring to targets, we're referring to storage environments. So this could be workstations, servers, whatever you had selected to scan within. Just below that, we're giving you the numbers for the amount of prohibited data we found. So prohibited data being your track 1, track 2, magnetic stripe prohibited data on the back of a card. And also the software has the intelligence to differentiate between test data that you have running in your system and actual matches to keep false positives low. Just below that, you can see the target types where we found the information. Quite a lot in your Dropbox environment, a lot in your files. And then we break it down for you as well by the file format also. So you can see a lot of information in your zip archive and so on. So we're trying to cover every aspect of your organization so we can open up effectively all file formats and scan within them. This is what you'd see if you'd selected to go into an actual user's account. So if you're seeing the results from the previous page and you wanted to go in and have a look at, this example is a Dropbox account. So once we've gone into this user's account, you can see on the top half of the screen there we have a number of files, but we've ticked off and selected to have a look within the bottom file there. Once that's selected, the contents of that file will open underneath. So you can see that in this example we have 1,000 matches and 961 of those being identified as cardholder data. The software, I suppose the difference between us and other generic pan scanning tools would be that we're not only looking for the 16-digit number, but we're also looking for the contextual data around it. So you can see there's personal information relating to each of these cards. And also a question we do get asked a lot on this slide is, are we showing you the full card number here as a system administrator on a management interface? And the answer is no. Once the agents have performed the scan and we're bringing this information back to the management interface, these are automatically redacted out. We don't want to be giving you more problems than you already have. So some of the remediation functions built into the tool, once we bring you to the source of where data is resting in your environment, you can permanently delete files. You can quarantine or relocate files to a more secure location. You can encrypt files, or as you saw in the previous example, you can mask or redact out those card numbers. So data protection by design and default. The Commissioner wants to see that organizations have at least made an attempt or have some systems in place working towards compliant. So as well, what I didn't touch on the previous slide is that this graph on the top left-hand side of the screen is representing the levels of sensitive data we found in this organization over a period of time. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the levels of data are quite low, but as time goes on, they're increasing and eventually spiraling out of control. So what you'd expect to see using the tool would be that the higher levels of data would begin on the left-hand side of that graph, and as you would scan and remediate over time, the levels would become lower and lower, and you'd want to continue doing this until you can get as close to zero as practically possible and start seeing some consistency in that graph there. So it's designed as a business-as-usual tool. A lot of people will ask us, can we just scan everything once, quarantine or remediate everything and never do it again? And that would be like saying, I only have to clean my house once, the kitchen, the living room, the bedrooms, and never have to clean it again. But as you all know, the dirt will always come back, and the same goes for sensitive data. So it makes perfect sense to have a tool that you can schedule your scans weekly, fortnightly, however you see fit. Breach notification in 72 hours, so organizations will have a responsibility to notify the Commission that they have been breached. And once again, reverting back to the previous slide, if you start to see any sudden movements in that graph, you can be sure that you need to go in and have a look at various departments to see if anything unusual is happening. But that graph can also notify you to that as well. These are the groups within the company. So when you're deploying this software, it's agent-based scanning. So you're pushing agents out to the devices you have in scope. And when doing this, you can assign a group name to each target or whatever device it is. So that, once a scan is complete, say for someone responsible for it in the finance team, they will be notified as soon as it's complete so they can go in and remediate, so that if you do suffer a breach, there's nothing there to steal. The information has been quarantined or deleted. Here's just some of the clients that we've helped. We have a lot of clients in the finance industry, but it ranges from a wide variety. I suppose these days, and under GDPR, effectively every organization is going to be holding some sort of personal information. Just to finish off, a little bit about ourselves. We're 100% focused on sensitive data discovery. So we're not trying to do a few different things, data loss prevention, classification. I think the next speaker is actually going to be touching on classification. But we focused on one area to try and do it quite well. We've our HQ in Asia and Singapore, offices in North America, and I'm based in Dublin, Ireland. Well, that's pretty much everything. Thank you for listening, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the conference.